And we are back. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Noel's podcast, episode number 13. I'm the host, Noel Tesfa. Shout out to everyone that's tuned in who continues to show the podcast love. If you're new here, if this is your first time, extra big shout out to you. Hopefully, this podcast is something that you can enjoy and stick around for. And if that's the case, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, follow on all social media platforms. Any form of support is greatly appreciated around here. Hopefully, everyone's doing well as the weekend is upon us, as the summertime is upon us. And you know what the start of the summer means, right? NBA Finals. We're finally here. This is why we go through a long 82-game regular season. This is why we go through a grueling 2-month stretch of playoff basketballs to get to this point. Only 2 teams left standing, the San Antonio Spurs, the New York Knicks, and I'm here for all of it. So today's episode, the majority of it is going to be my reaction to Game 1 of the NBA Finals between the Knicks and the Spurs, all my thoughts, what I liked, what I didn't like. We're going to talk Jalen Brunson, Victor Wembanyama, Karl Anthony Towns, and the rest of these 2 very talented teams. So that will take up a majority of today's episode. And then towards the end, I'll give a few of my thoughts on the recent major trades during this past week in the NFL. Obviously, the Myles Garrett trade to the Los Angeles Rams, and then the A.J. Brown trade to the New England Patriots. I'll talk a little bit about those. So if you're a football fan, even if you're not a football fan, you're going to want to stick around for that. But that's all I got for you guys today. So hopefully you enjoy. Today is the weekend episode technically. So, I have to give you guys my song of the week. And this week's song of the week is called Barbie Doll by Hurricane Wisdom featuring Chance the Rapper. This is off of a 3-pack that Hurricane Wisdom dropped a couple of weeks ago featuring Chance the Rapper, who is on a crazy comeback run right now, dropped a phenomenal album last year, had some pretty good features. So if you guys are interested in that, you haven't heard it yet, go check that out. It's called Barbie Doll by Hurricane Wisdom featuring Chance the Rapper. So now we got Song of the Week out the way. Let's get into the NBA Finals. Game 1 last night, Knicks, Spurs. And actually, before I get to Game 1, I didn't give you guys my official predictions for the NBA Finals and who I think is going to win the championship. So I'll do that now. And my official prediction for the 2026 NBA Finals is I have the New York Knicks winning in 6 games, Knicks in 6. And yes, I had that before last night's game, so don't get at me. You can check my Instagram story before the game started. I had the Knicks in 6 from the jump. And I had a few major reasons why I have the Knicks winning this series. Reason number 1 is they just look like the best team all playoffs, and sometimes it just comes down to that. I've talked about it already. They haven't lost in a month. Crazy win streak. They're blowing teams out, and I get it. The East is considerably weaker in terms of competition than the West. But even with that in mind, there is no way that the Knicks were supposed to dominate the way that they have, to be on a 10-game win streak going into the finals, winning every game by basically 20, 25 plus points. They've clicked more than any other team has clicked so far in these playoffs. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is as good as the Spurs have been the whole year and in these playoffs, they just went through a tough 7-game series against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that clearly had to have taken something out of them, as physical as the series was. And then you, on top of all the physical play, you add all the mental warfare that was going on. And they've talked about it. Wemby's talked about it in interviews. Some of the Spurs guys have talked about it in interviews. It took literally everything out of them just to beat the Thunder and get to this point in the finals. Meanwhile, the Knicks absolutely cruised to the NBA finals. They swept the second round. They swept the third round, the conference finals. I think the stat was that they played 4 games in 26 days. That's like a game a week, which is basically like an NFL season. Like that's what happens in the NFL. That's not supposed to happen in the NBA playoffs. So the Knicks are the more well-rested team. They're the more energetic team. They're clicking on all cylinders. And the final reason why I'm taking the Knicks that I'll tell you guys is going into this series, I thought it was going to be there was going to be a bunch of close games. It was going to be very nip and tuck towards the end of a bunch of these ball games. And as great as Victor Wembanyama is, and he might already be the best basketball player in the world, but as great as he is, when it comes to making clutch shots and clutch plays down the stretch of close games, the New York Knicks have a guy on their roster who I trust maybe more than anybody in the NBA. I would still probably have Shea over him, but today is not the day to make that argument, so I'm not going to I'll concede to Brunson, but Jalen Brunson has been one of maybe the most clutch player in the NBA, and I trust him to make more plays down the stretch than anybody on the Spurs, and he proved me right last night, so we're going to get into that, but those are the major reasons why I have the New York Knicks winning this game in 6 and bringing the NBA championship back to New York City for the first time in over 50 years. So that's my that's my NBA Finals prediction, my official prediction. Now let's get into game 1 last night. Final score, Knicks 105, Spurs 95, another double-digit win for the Knicks. I can't believe, even though it's kind of misleading because this was way closer than a double-digit game. But Knicks win in San Antonio. They take a 1-0 series lead and claim home court advantage at the same time. And the biggest story of this game, for me at least, was, I already talked about him just now, Jalen Brunson. Now, Brunson finished with a game-high 30 points last night, but what he did in that fourth quarter is what is the reason why a lot of people have called him the best closer in the NBA, the most clutch player in the NBA. And it's what he's been doing since the moment he's put on a Knicks jersey. For the past 4 years, he has just made clutch basket after clutch basket. And he's been the king of the fourth quarter in the NBA. And last night, he was not having a great game on the offensive side by any stretch. He had 17 points going into the third quarter, but he was shooting 7 of 22 from the field. That's less than 33%. And usually he starts the fourth quarter on the bench. He'll play the whole third quarter, and then the first few minutes of the fourth, he'll start on the bench. This game was no different. So he starts the fourth quarter on the bench, and as soon as he checks into the game, he immediately goes on a 6-0 run by himself, comes in, hits a floater, gets in transition, some layups, gets to the free throw line. Like, he was doing it all. And shout out to him, because before he got into the game, his over-under was like 21.5. He was at 17. I'm like, 7.5 minutes. You don't think Jalen Brunson is going to get 5 points? Smash the over, cash me in like 2 minutes. So shout out to Jalen Brunson. But comes in the fourth quarter, 6-0 run immediately. Spurs have to call a timeout. Knicks have all the momentum. Now, this was when Wemby was out of the game, which was like a pattern that you noticed, and I'll get to that. But Spurs call a timeout. Wemby comes back in the game. Brunson misses a few shots, but Spurs, when they cut it close again, Brunson clutch step back jumper over Devin Vassell to stop the bleeding a little bit for the Knicks, and then a clutch 3 in the corner to essentially seal the game. And the Knicks steal game 1 on the road. And this Brunson thing is becoming like, this is incredible. It's feeling very Allen Iverson-ish, Steph Curry-ish in the around 2014, 2015 times, even though Steph was a bit younger than Brunson. But what he's doing, it's like you feel it at the end of every game. If it's a close game, even game one against the Cavs when when the Knicks were coming back, you could feel it. As soon as Jalen Brunson hit 2 shots in a row, you're like, the Knicks could actually win, because when he gets going in the fourth quarter, a 6'2" guard, and I don't even think he's that tall, is not supposed to be this unstoppable. And the Spurs have the personnel to at least make it tough on him with Castle and Fox, tall, physical defenders, and then not to mention Wemby in the back. And he's too good to like officially shut him down, but you wouldn't expect him to do what he did in the fourth quarter, as great as he is. But again, he was just making play after play after play. And the fact that he was having a bad game up to that point and then still was able to score 13 points in that final quarter, went 5 of 9 from the field. It's gotten to the point where this is the expectation now. Like, I'm expecting every single close game, I'm expecting Jalen Brunson to close it out for the Knicks. And a lot of these games are close with like 3-4 minutes left in the game, and the Knicks still end up winning by double digits because Brunson goes on these crazy runs at the end of the game. So shout out to Jalen Brunson, what he did. And he was getting beat up, especially at the beginning of this game. In the first quarter, I think Harrison Barnes pushed one of his teammates into Brunson's knee. He had to come out the game. That looked a bit scary for a second. He went to the back in the locker room to get checked out, I guess. But they were being physical with him. And I think Luke Cornett stepped on his ankle at one point during the second quarter, and Brunson was pissed off about that. They didn't call the foul. But he kept playing through the physicality, and he just kept coming. And when it was time to snap in the fourth quarter, he did that. He also had a pretty good second quarter as well. I think he had like 8 points in the second. And a lot of those points did come when Wemby was on the bench. And that leads me to Victor Wembanyama. Now, look, Wemby finished with 26 and 12. Really good box score for his first finals game. But if you really watch the game, he was not good on offense until the final few minutes of this game. When the Spurs were down and he needed to make a few baskets, he hit a 3. He was getting to the free throw line. So he did his part in the final minutes of the game. But everything leading up to that, he was not good on offense. And a lot of the credit has to be given to Karl Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson, the bigs for the Knicks, and the type of deep defense that they were playing on Wemby, especially in the first half, because you could tell in the first half he was taking a lot of jumpers, wasn't getting to the rim as much, wasn't getting to the free throw line as much. And he hit his first 3 of the game. But other than that, in the first half, he couldn't get pretty much anything to fall. In the second half, he made more of an effort to get closer to the rim, get to the foul line more, get easier baskets. But still, it's harder against Towns and Robinson, who have much more of a physical advantage over Wemby. Wemby's always going to have the height advantage against whatever player he's going against, but the physical advantage against Chet in the last series, not so much Hartenstein, but against Chet, he had somewhat of a physical advantage because Chet is actually skinnier than Wemby. But Towns and Robinson are 2 physical guys, so they were able to get him off his spots. And one thing I wanted to see the Spurs do a little more, and which I feel like they would have more success at, is getting Wemby some coming off of a few pin downs from the corner, having one of the guards, whether that be De'Aaron Fox or Dylan Harper, maybe Steph Castle, set a pin down screen for Wemby, and then he curls off the pin down screen from the corner and he catches the ball with 2 feet inside of the paint with some space to operate, and maybe one of the guards matchups and they switch on to Wemby. If Wemby gets the ball with 2 feet in the paint and a little bit of space to operate, it's over because he can just stretch his arms out and put the ball in the rim. So I wanted to see the Spurs do a little bit more of that. Maybe they will in the games coming up. but Wemby was not good on offense for a majority of this game. His defense was impeccable, and it's always going to be impeccable. In that third quarter to start, the first few minutes of the third quarter, it felt like he was altering almost every single shot that the New York Knicks took. I think they had like 2 points in the first 4 minutes of the third quarter, and that was actually helpful for the Spurs, who went on a run and built a double-digit lead during that time. And on defense, Wemby was the anchor for that because it was like easy shots too. And the Knicks would either pass up the easy shots, or even when they would attempt them, Wemby would alter it in some kind of way and they would miss. So his defense was incredible. There was a few times where Karl-Anthony Towns had him on a pump fake and got by him, and Wemby's recovery time is insane with his length. So even when he doesn't have the greatest offensive game, the reason why he is such probably the most impactful player in the NBA is because of what he does on defense. And you could especially feel it when he would come out the game. Like I said, that's when Brunson and the rest of the Knicks would go on a run. When Wemby would go out the game in the third quarter, he came out. I think he was limping a little bit. I think who was it? It was Josh Hart ran into his knee or like kneed him. Charlie horsed him. So he limped out of the game for a little bit in the third, and then that's when the Knicks came back from that double-digit lead. But he was great on defense, not so great on offense, and he has to be better on offense if the Spurs want to get back into this series, because 6 of 21 is not going to cut it. 26 and 12, it looks great, but when you go further into the box scores, shooting 6 of 21 from the field is never going to cut it. And I mentioned the defense of Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson, and I have to give major props to Karl-Anthony Towns and what he's done in these playoffs. Game 1 finished with 18 points, 12 rebounds, great defense on Wemby. And one thing I was scared about Towns going into this series, even though he hasn't done it as much these playoffs, is he is notorious for getting into foul trouble by committing like dumb fouls 50 feet away from the basket. That's something that's always frustrated me about Karl-Anthony Towns' game. So that was going to scare me. I was going to see, is Wemby going to bait him into committing a few dumb fouls? And even though Cat was in a little bit of foul trouble, he had 4 fouls in the game. It wasn't the dumb fouls that he's notorious for. So that was great. So he was great on defense, but more importantly on offense, he attacked Wemby, like attacked him multiple times, going to the basket. And sometimes he got his shot blocked. Sometimes he had success, but the main thing is he kept trying. And that's the biggest difference between what Wemby is facing in this series against Cat and what he faced in the last series against Chet. Because Chet was so defeated mentally that he didn't even try. He didn't even try to attack Wemby. I talked about it in my last episode. Didn't even attempt a shot in the last 3 quarters of Game 7. Cat is not going to do that, and he just kept attacking Wemby and finding success sometimes. And Charles Barkley even gave him credit during the halftime show. While the Knicks were down, they were down by 3 going into halftime, but Barkley was giving Cat credit because he's attacking Wemby, and whenever he was doing that, he was finding success. And that's the recipe. You got to go at him. That's what Minnesota did, and that's why they were able to get 2 games off of them. But you got to attack Wemby, and Cat just kept coming and kept coming. So he was great last night on offense, on defense, didn't commit a bunch of dumb fouls. All a plus sign for Cat. So great last night, and just been great this entire playoffs. And I don't think anybody has completely shifted the narrative around their name more in these playoffs than Karl-Anthony Towns has. Because for a large portion of his career, he has been considered a uber talented player, but was really goofy and would make dumb decisions, and it would be hard to win with him. But this playoff run has showed that he is a serious winning player that can be the second best player on a championship level team, and is just a major contributor to winning. And I've been so impressed with Karl Anthony Towns. Can't say enough about him. Had a very heartfelt interview last night with the Inside the NBA guys. So shout out to Karl Anthony Towns. If he continues to play how he played last night, the Knicks are in pole position to win this series. And another guy who had a very impactful game for the New York Knicks was Josh Hart, one of the greatest 3-point games you'll ever see. He only finished with 3 points, and yet he was the unsung hero for the New York Knicks in this game. He finished with 15 rebounds, 6'4" guy, finished with 15 rebounds, including a key offensive rebound late in the fourth quarter when the Knicks were losing a bit of momentum. He got that key offensive rebound. He had a bunch of big defensive rebounds, especially in the third quarter when the Spurs were really attacking the offensive glass. Josh Hart was the one who kept coming up with the defensive rebounds for the Knicks. And that's a major part of defense. Like, you have to sit and play defense and stop the other team from scoring, but you have to end the possession with the rebound. If they keep getting offensive rebounds and more chances to score, then every NBA team is going to eventually make baskets. So Josh Hart, a bunch of key offensive and defensive rebounds in this game. Like I said, he finished with 15 boards. He also finished with 6 assists and 4 steals, was a menace everywhere. He was a plus 22, the highest plus minus out of everybody in the game. And this all came with him being in foul trouble in the first half. He had 3 fouls in the first half, picked up the third one early in the second quarter. You could tell he wasn't happy about that. He told Mike Brown to leave him in the game. But despite being in foul trouble early, he just kept impacting the game when he was on the floor. And coming into the series, I thought that Josh Hart was going to be the biggest X factor because he was going to be the one that the Spurs kind of keyed on the least on offense. Like, they were going to let him let him shoot, do what he wanted. The rest of the guys are more talented offensive players: Bridges, OG, Brunson, and Cat. So I thought Josh Hart was going to have to be the X factor. And I was thinking X factor more in the vein of him making shots because I thought they were going to leave him open. But he only had 3 points and still left a major imprint on this game. So great game for Josh Hart. We'll see if he can continue to keep that up for the rest of this series. OG finished with 17 points, but 12 of them came in the fourth quarter, had 2 massive threes to help the Knicks take the lead. So he wasn't really doing much on offense in the first 3 quarters, but him along with Brunson in the fourth quarter were major reasons why the Knicks were able to take the lead and then sustain the lead and get the W. So he was great, those 2 big threes. And he showed the most emotion that I've ever seen from OG. I think it was after he hit the second 3 in the fourth quarter, he was running back and you could see he was yelling. And I'm like, yo, if OG is showing emotion like this, yo, we might have to wrap this thing up because, again, this is a guy who's notorious for being very stoic and even keel. But last night, he was on one in the fourth quarter, and that helped the Knicks. On defense, he's always going to be great, kind of like Wemby, not the same impact, but he's always going to have a pretty good impact on defense. Last night, he only had 1 steal, but he was constantly swiping at the ball, especially when Wemby put the ball on the floor. OG's hands always ended up, swiping at it and making it difficult for Wemby to dribble. He made it tough on whoever he was guarding. On ball, off ball defense, he was great. So really good game for OG. Mikal Bridges was fine. He only had 9 points, but I'm sure he'll pick it up as the series goes on. Now, for the rest of the Spurs, first of all, Dylan Harper, oh my goodness. He finished with 16 points and 8 rebounds off the bench. Again, not jaw-dropping numbers, but if you watch the game, yo, he continues to amaze me. Not to be on no glazing type of thing, but Dylan Harper, it doesn't make sense what he's doing as a rookie in these playoffs and what he's, especially in the NBA finals, to do. Like, he came in game 1 last night and the Spurs started off pretty slow, which I expected. Again, they came off a very tough Game 7 series, Game 7 being on Saturday. So I didn't expect them to come out hot, and they didn't. As soon as Dylan Harper got in the game in the first quarter, he gave the Spurs a automatic spark, and he came in, was getting to the rim, hitting shots. He was just being Dylan Harper. He finished with 10 points in the first quarter. And before Wemby took over at the end of the fourth quarter, Dylan Harper looked like the best player for the Spurs in that game for me. Like, I thought he was playing the best out of anybody on San Antonio up until when Wemby took over, because he, again, he plays with such a poise and controlled physicality that a rookie 20-year-old is not supposed to do. This is not a normal rookie, guys. Like, so he was amazing, and I thought he should have been involved a bit more on offense in the fourth quarter when the Knicks started to come back and take the lead. He had 0 shot attempts in the fourth quarter. That should not happen. I think the Spurs are going to have to find a way to get more two-man game with him and Wemby involved some way, somehow, because, Harper, if you put Harper and Wemby in a pick and roll, it's borderline unstoppable, because Harper plays with such a patience that if you're going to send all the help towards Wemby and funnel the help towards Wemby so he doesn't get the easy lobs at the rim, Harper is so patient and picks his spots so great that he's going to get to the rim and finish, or he's going to pull up and finish from like a 10 feet jump shot. So, the Spurs got it, man. The Spurs got it with Dylan Harper. Steph Castle was good. Like, he was good on offense too at certain points of the game, but it's his jump shot. Once Castle develops his jump shot a bit more and becomes more consistent with that, that's going to take his game to a whole other level. So Harper and Castle were pretty good. I thought Harper was the best player for the Spurs up until the fourth quarter when Wemby took over. But yeah. Now, what I didn't like for the Spurs, De'Aaron Fox, he was basically a no-show for the entire game. 7 points, 3 of 13 shooting from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. And I know he's playing hurt. Like, we know this. He has the ankle issues, but you can't really make that excuse, because we saw what he did in Game 7 against OKC, and he was really good in that game. So you can't have it both ways. You can't, when he plays good, we give him his flowers, but when he doesn't play good, we say he's injured. So he has to be way better. And he had a few stretches, like the end of the first half. He had one play where he stole the ball from Josh Hart, got a layup, and then this was like his only good sequence of the game. He stole the ball from Josh Hart, got a layup, and then on the very next play, broke the defense down, found Julian Champagnie open in the corner for the 3, and that basically gave the Spurs momentum going into halftime. But other than that, he was not good. And the Spurs have to make a decision, because either he has to play better in these next few games, or you're going to have to give Dylan Harper more of his minutes as the series progresses, because Harper looked ready. Fox looks hurt and did not play well. So that's a decision the Spurs are going to have to make. Champagnie was a monster in the first half. 15 points, hit 5 threes, including the 3 in the corner that I just mentioned off the Fox pass. So he was great in the first half, and that was a big reason why the Spurs had the lead. He did absolutely nothing in the second half. Like, it didn't even feel like he was playing. He had 1 point, went 0 for 4 from 3. So started with 15 points at half, finished with 16 points in the game. That's the live by the 3, die by the 3 nature of the NBA and basketball in general when it comes to shooters. You're going to live by the 3, and when it's going in, it looks amazing. But when it's not going in, yeah. So great first half from him, awful second half. He has to be better than 1 point per half. So that's what I have from the player side of things. for the overall team side, the Knicks played really fast, and you could tell they were making a concerted effort to play fast during this game. And Kenny Smith said at halftime that it was a mistake for the Knicks to play fast because they were down. He said that. But he said it was a mistake for them to play fast because the Spurs are the much younger team. And it doesn't force the young guards like Castle and Harper to really sit and make proper reads and proper decisions when it's just up and down. But I completely disagreed with that point from Kenny because the Spurs just came off a 7-game series. I'm going to keep reiterating that point. They just came off a 7-game tough series. The Knicks are the more fresher team. They're the more energized team. So it only makes sense for them to capitalize off of that energy and off of that momentum to go fast and see if the Spurs respond. And it also forces Wemby to, keep going from end to end, make him tired, not allow him to like sit in the paint and really have the impact that he does on defense. He's still going to be great because of the length that he has. But if you're up and down the court constantly, it's going to be hard for him to make that same impact if he's only at half court and the guys are getting to the rim, right? So I disagreed with Kenny's point there. I think the Knicks need to continue playing fast, at least for the first few games of this series. And for the Spurs side of things, it's just about them getting Wemby closer to the basket. Like I said, having him come off those pin downs, getting him the ball while he has 2 feet in the paint. That should be priority number one, because as great as the rest of the team is around him, he makes this whole thing go. And when he has great games on offense, we saw it in the Spurs Thunder series. When Wemby has impeccable offensive games, the Spurs are unbeatable. They win every game. When he's mediocre on offense, like he was last night, you can get them. And that's what the Knicks did. So the Spurs need to find a way to get Wemby closer baskets towards the rim. He needs to do a better job himself of not letting Cat and Mitchell Robinson push him off his spots. And I expect him to make that change early. You're going to see that early in game 2. I expect him to come out and really attack the rim, attack the offensive glass. It's going to be tough. And also what the Knicks do really well is getting Wemby out into switches and guarding perimeter guys. And then the rest of the Knicks team attacks the offensive glass when Wemby's not in the paint. The Knicks are a really good offensive rebounding team. So I think that's a really smart strategy for the Knicks that we're going to continue to see. But yeah, Wemby just has to make more of an effort of getting closer shots at the rim, and I think he'll do that. But like I said, I have the Knicks winning this series in 6. I expected them to win game 1. I think they're going to split the first 2 games. I think it would have been harder for them to win the series in 6 if the split was the Spurs win game 1 and then the Knicks win game 2, because to win basically 4 out of the next 5 would have been tough. So the Knicks really needed game 1. They got it. I think they'll split. Knicks win game 1, Spurs win game 2. And then I see the Knicks winning both games in Madison Square Garden, because I think that crowd is just going to be on 1,000. And as much as the Spurs has responded, the Spurs young group has responded to tough crowds, New York is a different animal, and we're going to see that. So I think they win. The Knicks win the 2 games at home in Madison Square Garden. They go up 3-1. Spurs win game 5. They win game 5 in San Antonio, and then the Knicks close it out in game 6 in New York. But we'll see. Game 2 is tomorrow. I'm excited for that. Game 1 was really good. Hopefully game 2 is more of the same. But those are my thoughts on game 1 of the NBA Finals between the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs. Now let's get into a little bit of football. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but this past week, we had one of the biggest blockbuster trades in recent NFL history. The Los Angeles Rams acquire Myles Garrett, the reigning defensive player of the year, one of the greatest defensive players of all time. The Rams acquire him and trade 2024 first round pick Jared Verse, who is a monster, by the way. A first round pick, a second round pick, and a third round pick in the consecutive drafts 2027, 2028, and 2029. And this is what I'll say about this trade. The three greatest defensive players that I've ever watched play football in my lifetime, and there have been many, but the three greatest, the ones that stick out, J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, and Myles Garrett. Those guys were just different than everybody else. Watt and Donald are first ballot Hall of Famers when they're done. JJ Watt's not in the Hall of Fame yet, right? Yeah, but Watt, Donald, first ballot Hall of Famers. Aaron Donald might be the greatest defensive player of all time, him and Lawrence Taylor, if you want to have that debate. Myles Garrett is in that type of conversation. He is that level of player. And for the Rams to have employed two of the three greatest defensive players in my lifetime between Aaron Donald and now Myles Garrett, it's literally the rich get richer, because yes, the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl last year, but for, let's say, 75% of the season, maybe even more than that, the Los Angeles Rams were the number one team in the NFL. They were the favorites to win the Super Bowl. They lost in the NFC Championship game to the Seattle Seahawks. They played 3 times the whole year because, division rivals. But they lost the NFC Championship game by 1 possession. And still, they came back this year and people had them, I think Vegas had them as the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. They were the favorites before the Myles Garrett trade. Matthew Stafford is the reigning MVP. Puka Nacua might be the best wide receiver in the NFL. He certainly can make a case for it. He's in the small group, him, Jefferson, Chase, and JSN. And now the Rams just traded for the guy who might be the best non-quarterback in the entire NFL. Like, take out the quarterbacks from the game, every other position, Myles Garrett certainly has a strong argument that he is the best player in the NFL. So you just added the best player in the NFL to what was potentially the best team with the reigning MVP, Matthew Stafford at quarterback, with the best wide receiver duo in the NFL with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. You acquired Trent McDuffie to be in your secondary, and you add Myles freaking Garrett. This is literally the case of the rich get richer. And they did give up a lot. Like, Cleveland got a pretty good haul in this trade. Jared Verse is a monster. I'm a huge fan of his game, plus all the picks. But clearly the Rams could care less about draft picks, because they said to hell with that. They acquired Myles Garrett. And I like the Rams. Like, I enjoy watching them play football. I'm not a Rams fan, but I enjoy watching them play football. I like Matthew Stafford. I love Puka Nacua. He's made me a lot of money, and he's a monster. Devontae Adams, I always have special place in my heart for him from the Green Bay Packer days with him and Aaron Rodgers. So I like the Rams, but this is just not fair. This is not fair. They're the prohibitive favorites to win the Super Bowl, and rightfully so. They have maybe the best offense in the entire league, certainly one of them. And now they just added one of the biggest disruptors on the defensive end in NFL history. So it's going to be a very, very tough task for whoever has to go against the Rams, whether they're playing in SoFi or an away game. It's not going to matter. This team is looking stacked everywhere, offense, defense. We'll see what they do on special teams. McVay is one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the NFL. So, yep, the rich get richer. It's too early to make my preseason pick for the Super Bowl champions, but I will say this, it's going to take a lot for me not to pick the LA Rams after what they've done this offseason combined with what they already had. I might have picked the Rams before the Myles Garrett trade. Now this if you don't watch football, just Google Myles Garrett highlights and you'll know what I'm talking about. The guy is a physical specimen of epic proportions. And if Aaron Donald comes out of retirement, just wrap it up, because I know guys coming out of retirement aren't usually the greatest, whatever. Aaron Donald is a different cat, bro. You see his workout videos, all of that. Again, different. You have Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett on the same D line. I don't even want to think about that. Aaron Donald, just chill out, bro. Let Myles Garrett take this one, all right? But yeah, that's what I have on the Myles Garrett trade to the Rams. Jared Verse, good luck to you, my boy. I went from a Super Bowl contender to the Cleveland Browns. Went from Los Angeles to Cleveland. Tough break. Hopefully Shadur is better than he was last year. And yeah, you have Todd Monken as the coach. Good luck to you. That's all I'm going to say. Now, I won't spend as much time on the A.J. Brown trade as I did on the Myles Garrett trade. All I'll say is the Patriots desperately needed a number one wide receiver. Stephon Diggs was good for them last year, but way too inconsistent. And you could tell in the Super Bowl, as bad as Drake May was, a lot of it was the pressure that the Seahawks put on him, and his receivers just could not get open. They were blanketing him. They were blanketed very well by the Seahawks secondary. So he needed this go-to guy because his wide receiver room was looking nasty, like awful. But with that being said, when I gave my thoughts on the schedule being released, I talked a little bit about how I feel about the Patriots. I think they're going to have a regression year. I do not think they're going to go back to the Super Bowl. I don't think they'll even make the AFC Championship game. They'll be a contender for the playoffs, but with the whole Mike Vrabel situation, it's quieted down a little bit in the past few weeks. We'll see what happens. Maybe I jinxed it, but I just don't believe in the Patriots next year. Their schedule is going to be a bit tougher. And A.J. Brown's a monster. He hasn't been a monster in the past few years. A lot of that was the chemistry issues with him and Jalen Hurts. If you keep up with football, you know about that. But Brown hasn't looked like a top 10 receiver since midway through the 2024 season. So I think he is going to have a bounce back year. He's coming back to his old coach, Mike Vrabel from Tennessee. So that's going to be good. Drake May is great with the deep balls. A.J. Brown is one of the biggest athletic freaks we have at the wide receiver position. So they'll be a great tandem. It's good for New England. They needed him in the wide receiver room. I don't know how well he's going to do for team chemistry. It's a bit overblown. I think a lot of that had to do, a lot of the problems in Philly. I know he was very vocal about it towards the media and like social media, but Jalen Hurts has to hold some type of blame when it comes to that situation. I think New England is going to be a bit different. Drake May doesn't strike me as the controversial type. The only person in that organization or people in that organization that have been in some type of controversy lately is the head coach and the owner. So I don't think we have to worry about that on the player side. Stephon Diggs is no longer there, so that's that. But it was a good move for the Patriots. For the Eagles, it's always tough losing a talent the caliber of AJ Brown, but it needed to be done. The chemistry was just absolutely shot between him and Hurts, and it was obviously affecting the locker room. Him and Sirianni, same thing. So I think the Eagles needed that fresh start. We'll see what Mekhi Lemon, their first round draft pick at receiver, how well he is, along with Devonta Smith. But in the short run, I think this was a good trade for the Eagles in the long, or a good trade for the Patriots. And in the long run, I think it will serve well for the Eagles. They got a draft pick back. So we'll see. But yeah, the Patriots especially, they needed this move to be done for Drake May to finally have his solidified number one receiver. So we'll see how that goes. But that's what I have on the two major trades in the NFL offseason. Talked about game one of the NBA Finals. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this episode. If you stuck around till this point, again, you're a real one. I appreciate the love and the support. Keep locking in with me. I'm gonna keep locking in with y'all. Hopefully, you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Don't do no dumb shit. And I will see you probably after game two of the NBA Finals. We'll be back either probably Monday. Game two is what? No. Game two is tomorrow. And then game three is Monday. So I'll probably do an episode right before game three where I talk a little bit about game three or game two and then preview what I think is going to happen in game three. That's probably what it's looking like. But yeah, thank you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you very soon. Enjoy your weekend.